for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We've completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
Attention, ladies and gentlemen, the Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
Alrighty.
We have launched.
Welcome, everybody. This is Planet Green Trees, episode number 513. Can't hear me?
You're fine.
Episode number 513. Better have my money when I come and get it. These are some old names created a long time ago. They're funnier than. On this episode tonight, impossible topics, in no particular order. Maybe some ranting, but we do know a couple things here that we are going to talk about. Michigan cannabis sales are down, and the reason may be in your neighbor's backyard. 3, urge your congressperson to co-sponsor H.R. 841 or thank them for signing on. Number 4, legal pot bill moving in Minnesota House despite Senate GOP opposition. Is that right, Minnesota? And they used to do forensic science for the Michigan State Police. Now they test cannabis. I know what they're talking about. And where's that other topic?
Yeah, we're going to discuss House Bill 4727, which seeks to throw marijuana users in jail once they get behind the wheel of a motor vehicle.
And we're going to talk about the state of Virginia.
Okay.
State of Virginia.
We got a lot of good topics, and stuff may come up in the interim. Let me do this and let everybody introduce themselves as we go around here so we know who will be contributing tonight and who will be, what point scoring system we'll be using. Think of it like your field sobriety tests. Yeah. We have the Bunker Boys that refuse to come on camera, but we'll recognize them briefly. And then we'll move over to Jim Powers, the founder of Michigan Parents for Compassion, and I understand recently opened a Google account.
I did.
Please welcome Jim Powers.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael. Good evening, everybody. It is good to be here with my Google account. I'm looking forward to the show. I'm really excited to talk about this driving issue. This is something I'm really passionate about and want to dive pretty deep on this one. So it's going to be good. So,
Good call. Good call. All right, next we have YouTube sensation and Elevation Stationer. Is that right? And
That's right.
really, a person that could probably go by one name. Please welcome Amanda.
Thank you, Michael. Happy to be here tonight and looking forward to the show. We got a lot of good stuff to talk about.
We do. We do. I'm excited about it and glad that we're all here doing this. And is that it? That's who we got. Oh, and then there's Jeff Frazier that I cannot see because my screen is blocking me. But oh, yes, there he is. Jeff Frazier. Can you hear us?
I can, and hello
Jeff.
from California. It's nice out here.
Jeff, I've looked up. Okay, you're good, good, good. By the way, great shirt. I recognize those 4 guys.
I think.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Never.
I'm actually, I'm friends with Ringo Starr on Facebook. I like a lot of his pictures that he posts. Yeah, he's a good guy. We're buddies.
we can't hear Joe.
We can't hear Jeff.
We can't hear Jeff's voice.
Jeff, can you hear us? All right. Okay.
Okay.
I can hear you.
No, I
thought
see
it was
mute.
my headphones.
I
I
still
will try
see
to do
mute.
better.
You'd mute. It may be us. Oh, you can?
Well, I can't hear him.
All right. Oh, we got.
Justin!
Maybe it was my headphones. We'll try
Sorry,
this way. Is that
maybe,
any better?
We'll have to come back.
Maybe we should come back for break.
Already? Can Jeff hear us?
All right. Well, why don't
All right, it's terrible.
we can take a quick
I gotta
break.
hear from Jeff. Come on.
Well, we're going to take a quick break,
All
and then
right,
we're going to
fine.
fix the problem.
All right. Well, okay. Good call.
Yeah.
We'll take a break.
We're going
We'll be
to
right back.
turn it off and back on
5:13.
again.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
was upper middle class, I had a yard of carpet grass. Worked backhoe 9 to 5 and paid my union dues. But the chef came one day and he took it all away. Left me without anything to lose. They forfeited my car, they found some sugar in a jar. Told me it was probably suspicion of a crime. The other day I saw it being driven by the law, and them boys in back was gonna do some time. Well, forfeiture today, Lord, what a funny way to pay. Keep the peace so all our kids can go outside and play. Without a cotton picking thing to lose, I got the deep East Texas task force blues. They took my minibar and then they seized my VCR. They could be misused to watch a nasty video. They took away my kitchen all the time. My wife was bitching that it wasn't nothing but oregano. They said my herbal tea might cause a sinful ecstasy. Told me it could only lead to doing something hard. They took my ass to jail. They took my wife, paid my bail. Took my double wide down to the county yard. Forfeiture today, Lord, what a funny way to pay. Keep the peace so all our kids can go outside and play. Without a cotton picking thing to lose, I got the Oakland County Task Force blues. Without a cotton picking thing to lose, I got them Oakland County Task Force blues.
Nice.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
Dr. Bud Green here. Welcome to our
And now back to more Planet Green Trees.
All right.
Yeah, we're back.
We're back. We got it all worked out, I think. So says Justin. Do we introduce everybody?
I think we should
Jeff.
Jeff
We have to
Frazier is
do
here,
Jeff
please.
again.
Yes, I had not heard of it. There he goes. There.
Jeff,
And the
'cause I
shirt
can't
we were
even hear
talking
him.
about, there you go. I can see it now. How you doing, brother?
Definitely. Hello.
There we go.
Let's go into the private laboratory business, Michael.
All right, fine. Well, you want to talk about that or just go into that business?
Let's just go into the business. We're as capable as anyone else.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. Let's see here. This is the... is this not
What was their margin of error? Like 30%?
Oh, no.
We can throw darts at a dartboard.
That's right.
Where's this...
Here's this bill.
but the Zoom for this... Here you go. Okay, here's the article. They used to do forensic science, if you want to call it that, for the Michigan State Police. Now they test cannabis. Lansing.
The cannabis.
Their background is in forensic science, but 3 former Michigan State Police lab techs are taking their skills and applying them to a new industry right here in Lansing. Todd Welch, Greg Michaud, and Michelle Glynn are all retired from the Michigan State Police. The 3 worked in the forensic science division, but when Michigan cannabis industry opened up, they saw an opportunity and jumped at it, starting Verities Laboratories. We thought that this industry would carry over our experience in forensic science into the testing process for health and safety, and those who are taking cannabis for medicinal use or recreational use. What said? That sounds like a cannabis user, doesn't it?
It does.
The venture has been a success. Right now, they have 2 locations and employ more than 30 people. Welch said, although there are differences, the reason they do the work is very similar to what it was in forensic science division. With this particular industry, you know it's the general public that we are providing a health and safety issue for. Oh, my God.
Yeah,
There are
buddy.
4 parallels there because, again, as a state police officer, our function was to make sure that we protect and keep people and prosperity safe. While he's so...
What about all the people they had thrown in jail?
No, listen, this started out as them explaining how they're forensic science. In this last paragraph, there's some parallels because, again, as a state police officer, I mean a forensic science, I mean a state police officer, I mean I'm the same person. I both in the state police and the science division. Our function, this is the problem. No forensic scientist has the obligation to protect the public. What does that police do?
Right.
Not the forensic science are beholden to the law and to science. There's no people in there.
I'd argue they're only really beholden to science. I'd take the law out of it.
Forensics
Yeah.
requires, no, according to Bradley Choate, a forensic scientist has 2 masters, science and law.
Oh, really? Are you sure?
Well, for example, as Jeff Frazier would tell you unequivocally that it is not enough for forensic scientists to merely identify the molecule of what appears to be and identify it. He or she must also know if it is a controlled substance. So they must know some law. And they must be able to place it as such if they're going to report it.
So let me get this straight. They become a master of law because they understand the Controlled Substances Act.
They have to be able. Well, listen. Forensic science is different than this science that they're talking about of testing marijuana because there's this extra factor, which is that the reporting is going to be used in court.
How is
to
that?
try to convict somebody?
But
of a
how?
crime.
I don't understand how that is any different. It's science. It is or it isn't. I mean, it's.
Well, I'll
there's
tell
no-
you why. I'll
there's
tell
no
you why. Because
gray.
the certification process for laboratories that are testing cannabis products is what they call the standard ISO certification.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
17025 is the new version.
Yeah.
Was it 2017, something like that?
Whatever.
From 2005, now it's 2017,
Yep.
is the new version. Anyways, the point is that this ISO certification that if you listen to anyone testify, we're ISO certified. We're nationally certified organization. This is bupkis on a roll, my grandmother would say. This is meaningless. This is no value. This is the lowest common denominator. In fact, the former director who said it was a political ping pong game all the time, John Collins, a former director before Michaud, told me, Mike, when they tell you that they are ISO certified, it has no meaning in science. It's like you and I standing in a circle, and we're bare feet, and someone draws a line, and they put their baby toe overboard. That's like the difference of what we're talking about. The true certifications come from ANAB, which is the former Ask Lab. I don't know. They've changed some things, but that is where the certification for forensic science comes in. Okay, to be able to testify above and beyond that. So what I'm saying to you is the testing protocols for the cannabis industry are a threshold of some competence, but certainly not the same threshold that would be required of a forensic certification. You see the difference?
Not really.
There's several levels of certification.
I understand what you're saying, but we know what the reported margin of error has been in tests that have come out of the Michigan State Police Lab. Yeah. And we know the margin of error that occurs when we go to our local neighborhood testing facility to have cannabis tested. And I can tell you, one is much less than the other.
That's correct.
Agreed.
I agree with Jim.
So there's some other interesting factors about these folks here. Let's go on to talk. So growers and producers contract the company to test their products. Chief Science Officer and partner Michelle Glynn. Interesting, Michelle Glynn's name I was reading about because she's the former director, and she was like legendary for she's like if you had a trial, she was the one that showed up and testified about everything. I had her in a trial once. We beat her. But I was going to say that she was discussed and blamed, ironically, in some FOIA requests of not performing some of the calibrations on machinery and signing off inappropriately. And it's funny because in this disclosure, they're passing the buck. She was no longer part of the unit at that time. But Michelle Glynn was enthusiastic explaining the work they do. They are called the Geno grinders, and what those are used for is to take these samples when they come in and grind them up into homogeneous powder. We can then use to test. Glynn said, talk about one of the tools of the trade, and those machines are really being put to work.
This is what, a grinder?
Right now, they test 250 pounds of cannabis each year. Cannabis flower sample go through at least 6 different tests before getting the lab seal of approval. A flower that needs full compliance needs potency testing, so it tells how much THC is in the flower. It needs water activity, it needs foreign matter, it needs pesticide analysis, heavy metals analysis, microbials, and that's all, Glynn said. Glynn, Michaud Welch say they are hoping to expand, opening more stores. So here's the thing. So first of all,
we'll get back to this Geno grinder thing. What is this? That looked like that smelled like a rat.
Well, I'm going to tell you, before they started using this, there was a big controversy that passed without a lot of attention a little while back, and it went something like this. There's 2 methods that the different labs are using to test for microbials. There's the old school method, which has been around for a long time, called the plate method, where they actually put on a plate and it grows into cultures and they can identify and they can determine how much. And then there's another method, which is QPRC, which is more akin to DNA testing, where you're and this will be the testing of the future. There's no question about it. It's cheaper, it's faster, but it has not been validated yet for cannabis work. In fact, there was a belief that of the 10 labs, licensed labs, 5 are using QPRC, 5 are using plating procedures, and a grower would send their product to be tested to the platers, and they'd fail for microbials, and they'd take it to the QPRC, and they would pass. So what this was doing was the people using the plating became, we're not using that, we'd rather go here. Right. And the argument that followed was that they were producing false
positives,
negatives.
Which side?
Well, the QPRC were testing it for microbials and not finding it.
They
false,
were in there.
False negative. They really was in there, so negatively. False negative.
It should have been the other way as well, where the plate method is generating false positives, which...
No, I'm saying the plating method is more reliable. Well, yeah, but the plating method is...
As long as you're in a sterile...
It's been validated.
But it has to be in a sterile environment.
I'm assuming, listen, I'm not there. It's all of witchcraft to me, okay? But I'm saying to you, of the 2, and I'm not defending one versus the other, there was this... In fact, this is what we know. We know that one of the plating places that rejected it went and saw it at another store and said, that looks like the stuff that we tested. And they took it back to their plating, and they tested it, and it was the same. They found the same batch with the same amount of mold in it. Okay, so that's what they did.
I see.
Okay.
All right.
You know, different day, different batch.
I like that technique. Well, I like that was done because, you know, it's important for examples just like this, what we're talking about, and so tell the rest of the story.
Well, I was going to say, you know that these discussions are less about science and more about getting the business. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And there is a cutthroat market that is unfolding here. And for one group to claim that the other one's doing false positives, the players of the QPRCs, is just professional competitivism. You know, it's not even
Of course
in the
it
name.
is.
So it would be perceived. So an independent auditor came in.
Oh, boy.
And found that the QPRC is not validated. So I believe, I'm just guessing here, knowing that to be the case, this Geno grinder is a newer technique where they grind it up. Jeff, did you already Google it?
No, I didn't already do that, but that just makes my bullshit sensor go off.
I mean,
homogeneous powder
exactly.
used in tests. What is this? Geno grinder.
Geno grinder.
Geno grinder.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
6
I don't
different
know
tests.
if I want to type that in there. I mean, that seems like a weird thing. It might be pop-ups
It is.
on my
It's a
computer,
weird thing to search
but
for.
I guess, you know, MacBook. Here we go.
It may be. This is like one of those covert testing procedures that the Michigan State Lab had been working on for a lot of years with all the forfeiture proceeds in there. And then, you know.
Comes with accessories.
Right.
All right.
Anyways,
That's how they hit their margin of error.
I do know that. This organization. I know that. Well, I'm trying to think. They are very supportive of law enforcement. Do you know that? Would you, Reese's? And I know that
I'm
were
shocked.
They were.
I mean, I think we're pretty supportive of law enforcement.
Well,
aren't
for
we?
the cannabis industry, you know, you know, their hands have been cleaned. I mean, let us say this. I can tell you that Michelle Glynn was probably responsible for more convictions for the presence of THC in someone's blood than anyone else in the state, and maybe even the carboxy.
Right.
Okay. I mean, she was in that heyday era. Her and a guy named Felix Adatsi. This guy Mishad, Jeff Frazier and I went and watched him speak at the CAP seminar in Wayne County, Criminal Advocacy Program, and really revealed to us something that, you know, but for being there may never have even been thought of. But we learned that from there that 40% of the entire MSP budget, Forensic Science Division budget, went to test cannabis.
Crazy.
And he followed that up by saying, this is why none of the rape kits are getting tested. Hopefully legalization will help.
Wow.
He said all of that. Jeff, remember? Sure you do.
Yeah. I fell out of my chair.
It's pretty wild. And it just that, you know, the light bulb went out there, and like, you know, every docket, every court is just littered with cannabis cases where, you know, they're 40% of all the business they're doing, they're getting, you know, even if they're batting 70%, they're still getting a lot of money.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which they're not. They're batting 100%. They're batting 99.7%. But I mean, listen, the industry is not about highest, you know, historical, moral values. I mean, these are persons that don't see the entry into the industry as being adverse to what they were doing before, and they think that they're actually contributing here.
Or they do, or they just don't care.
You know, listen,
It's like a switch hitter.
it's an interesting.
It's
I'll tell you
like,
something.
you know,
it's an interesting position.
letting the snake into the.
Because listen, let me say this: there is a view of marijuana that has evolved, right? There's the view. Some might say that cannabis in Michigan, while legalized, still has pitfalls. It's still Schedule I, etc. I had a great conversation with an officer today about this. This is phenomenal, but there's still problems. And then there's others that might say, well, we legalized it with limitations, and we got a regulated system, and this is good because people know where they're getting it from, and blah blah blah. And we get out of the basements of the dark, you know, gray market, and this is like a potentially policed view, and their perspective on it and the way that they conduct themselves. Oh, it was illegal then. We can destroy people's lives. It's legal now. Now we should be part of the industry. That's the law, and good for police in terms of oversight and doing this. And now we're just going to, get in the industry now. There is a prevailing view, not mine, but I'm saying prevailing view, there's nothing wrong with it. That it would be expected. You know what I mean? Like that. Who else would be in this other than retired police officers? I mean, they wrote the bills. You know what I mean?
It's terrible, actually, and just it really burns me up because those people for how long were the same people, just as we've talked about, who have been destroying others' lives, and they're now involved like this, licensed and making money and opening businesses and things like that.
I mean, listen. It's easy to judge, right? But I'm saying, like, the industry calls for it. The industry's not calling on caregivers. You know what I mean? I mean, it may be a little bit now with the recreational market, but at the time when they got in to the medical, and what they had to go through and whatever their capitalization and getting together, I'm saying to you that think about the MMFLA when it was first rolled out. It was a police bill.
Yeah.
It was antagonistic to the caregiver system.
Yeah.
Who else were they asking? Of course. I mean, the transportation of all things seemed to me to be, a retirement gig for police officers. It didn't turn out to be the case. Maybe there's some in it, maybe they're not. But
maybe because nobody wanted them that close to their stuff like that. It's still, there's still this like, how long has it been the forbidden fruit? And then you have all of a sudden you're just basically granting access to all of your treasures.
I promise you that Mishad and Glenn and the other guy are they're second, third business. They're employing 30 people. There's probably a trajectory out of the MS Michigan State undergrad biology program into the MSP Forensic Science Division, hiring into the Mishad Glenn team of, that's going to be, there'll probably be a thing, you know what I mean? And I do know and have heard that this entity, no others, this entity in particular is doing some additional testing for criminal cases. And I heard that this lab may be the one, if any, that was doing independent testing to quantify the amount of THC in the cannabis sativa L plant to delineate between hemp and cannabis. This one lab. Now,
see, there we have it, there.
But
there.
What's the problem with that?
Well,
isn't that always? And I mean, this is a bad example because you've got two former MSP cops that are running it, but we wanted an independent lab to be doing these sorts of tests and to take it away from the MSP Forensic Science Lab, right?
Well, you're talking about people that have worked within a biased system that was not objectively run. So the idea, okay, so that's one thing, that the person's coming from it give the appearance of independence, but would also tell you
that's why I said this is a bad example.
All right.
But I would rather those tests be performed by any other number of third-party labs out in the state.
They should have some kind of exclusivity type of thing where they're, they stay in their lane. Basically, just stay in your lane.
That's right. You can't switch sides.
Don't switch around like that.
Can't flip-flop.
No.
Here's a problem with this scenario, is that the act of doing this makes them biased. You know why? Because they are, by virtue of their license, the state of Michigan, by virtue of their relationship with the MRA and being authorized to do this activity, are restricted to doing independent testing exclusively for police and never a person or the lawyer for the person that's been accused of a crime. By virtue of that being part of this program, it makes them biased. Yeah. The only thing that they should be doing is saying, if that's the circumstances and I'm a private lab and I can't be hired by the defense and only the prosecutors or the police, I don't want to do it because you are tainting my objectivity. I'm only going to work for one group. You ask them to act like the Michigan State Forensic Science Division that has no clients, and they are the police and the lab are the same person. That's what's being created here. Anyways, yes, I think some independent testing would be fair. It's unfortunate that they've taken this position. I think we should. Who can we blame for this? Bill Schuette? Is it too late to?
I don't know. I think we can always pull him back. Once or twice.
He'll be back. He'll be back. Don't worry.
Life seemed easier when Bill Schuette was around for some reason.
I mean, there's something to be said about dealing with the devil, right?
It did.
Exactly. Why is that? I feel that way because I like it when there's a professional disdain for my opponent, because then there's no playing around. You know what I mean? Like this is just like this. Don't give me pleasantries. It's just fine. We'll be polite, but don't give me shit. I don't like you, but we're gonna be polite.
Right.
And give me your best shot. And I'll give you my. Like that. Yeah. It's almost better that way. You know what I mean? Because then you're on your best game. They're gonna. What do they really mean? Instead of just like being lured into some false sense of trust.
Yes.
It's like the jungle out there.
It is. Totally.
Jeff, what do you say?
It is.
Do we have a problem, Jeff? Do you think of having the Michigan State?
He looks like he's in a jungle right now.
Retired police doing work like this? Do we care? The lab,
I don't know. Is there a problem? Could we really not hire Greg Michaud's company to testify against the Michigan State Police?
That's right. This is all hearsay, but I do have a reliable source that told me that he was told he could not. So he was doing some independent work for a defense lawyer, and then he was told he could no longer do that. Then he got a call from someone from the Michigan State Police asking if he could do some work, and he said, I got to check. I didn't think we were allowed to do that. And he called and talked to the agency, and they said, oh, no. You can do it for the police, but you can't do it for anybody else. To which he said, well, that seems like I would be being biased because I lose my objectivity if I'm just working for one. So he told the police he wasn't going to do it. And then you know what happened? The next day, they did a inspection/audit at his facility. Like some Gestapo shit.
Bet they did.
Okay? Do you see what I'm saying? So
To Michaud?
No, this is an unnamed lab.
Independent.
That's licensed to the state. Names shall remain nameless. And but circumstances that are weird. And I'm telling you, like, if all you got is that license and they're doing stuff like that to you and they can, it's, that's some crazy state acting shit. Like, it tells you the power.
That's serious. That's a shadowy organization at work, for sure. As a condition of your license, you can only represent the police?
Yeah. I had that happen I had another one that was in the middle of helping us with one, and they told me that they couldn't anymore. And I said, well, you're in the middle of it. They said, okay, let me see if I can get permission. They said, fine, just because you already started it before you told you couldn't. But isn't that disappointing? I mean, it's disappointing. Pretty disappointing.
Well, is it legal? Is it legal to imply that into the terms of the license? Does the license itself say that, or is it somewhere in either the
policy,
the law, or the statute?
Right. Well, here's the problem.
I mean, statute
all of that may be the answer to all those questions. May be so disrupting to what it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? It's making it so terrible. Like, yes, all that, it's not written down. They have the secret police of the MRA that handle all this. There's no records of it, right? I don't know. Some covert group that, this is whatever, that's doing the cleanup or whatever. It has created enough of a concern and fear that license holder isn't going to do shit, Jeff. What's their battle about? You know what I mean? What are they going to do? They like fucking suck it up and fucking be quiet. I mean, literally. I mean, trust me. Why do they want to blow it all up, right? I mean, they just want to test more cannabis. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. This industry that's what it is. So why would we expect that? And that's not a former police officer. It's someone that's got whatever. It's
the general grinders.
General grinders.
Hundreds of thousands of pounds.
It's basically just it says here a geno grinder is just a plant and tissue homogenizer, automated mechanical disruption. It's this machine.
It's nothing. It's just some nonsense. It's just. I mean, they're operating at the lowest common denominator. I mean, there's such a falsity of what's taking place. It's not a big deal to be ISO. I mean, I'm not saying,
A long time ago, in my former, before, probably before I moved back to Michigan, I used to train ISO auditors. So I was a trainer.
Wow.
And I, of course, it's been so long now, but we used to train people how to audit for their compliance testing. That we were certified. Our company was ISO certified, and so I would train internal auditors who would then go out and perform audits, and then we had quarterly reports and
Wow. Do you know things about science?
No, I do not know things about science. I know, but that principle, that ISO certification can apply to anything, because what you're doing is you're looking to see if they have a process in place.
Sure.
And that they're following the process.
Right.
Whether it's right or wrong is not part of the equation.
True. And that they've created some other methods and protocols, whatever they may be, to oversee it and have some oversight and compliance and validations and things like
right.
that. All done.
There's all these checks and balances, and then we also instructed people on how to be audited.
Sure.
So that would be like, you would just only answer what they ask you.
Right.
Similar to when you get pulled over by the police.
Sure. Well, one of the...
But we didn't take it there. That was professional.
Some of the general ideas of what they may be doing is, if whatever area you want to become certified in, they'll do proficiency testing or send you unknown samples for you to test, and then you have to report it back. And only if you're able to validate those procedures that of some level of accuracy, that's supposed to be part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but the company determines whatever it is that their criteria is. So if they determine collectively that their percentage is 98, and they say it's 98, and these are the things that they have identified as issues.
Sure.
These are the things that they've done to correct them, and they're all documented. I mean, all of those things are looked at with the certification, with their compliance, right. ISO compliance.
In fact, some of the stuff is justified merely because it's acceptable within this certification community, that if there's a peer review article that's published, not challenged, but that it's okay to do it this way, even though, that's all that you need to be able to warrant it, to warrant whatever the process or procedure is, scientifically speaking. Jim, do you know what we're talking about?
Yep, I sure do.
Jim's pretty quiet tonight.
Well, Jeff, what about this proficiency? Yes, quiet man. Go ahead.
No, I'm
Jeff,
not quiet.
proficiency testing. What do you say?
Well, I mean, I think it's like you say all the time. We ran a test on this machine, and the machine is functioning perfectly well. Therefore, ISO. The
Right.
problem a lot of times is the inputs and the reporting. What happens in the middle of this black magic box is dependent on certain other things, like what goes in and the way you report the outputs. That's where we either have science or we don't have science, is in the way that they report this stuff. Oh, and we don't have to report uncertainty, even though we've got 35% error rate, because any positive test for a controlled substance is enough. And that's science, and that's the way that we're doing it, and that's the story. So, I mean, you can have an ISO compliant machine that doesn't give a scientifically accurate reading if the way that it's reported is flawed.
Correct. There's a lot of problems with this. I just happen to be involved with some court shit about this today. But, two things, Jeff, seem to continue to fall on deaf ears, especially regarding the testing of THC in the blood, the lack of reporting the uncertainty measurement, but knowing that the uncertainty measurement is 27, 29%, whatever, that's what it's been, 29, 28%. And conceptually speaking, I always thought that, they're hiding that because it's 27%. You know what I mean? And now their position is, no, we're not hiding it. 27% is what it is. It's okay. And for some reason, the idea that they have an uncertainty measurement of 27%, which means, let me say it this way: if the uncertainty measurement is 25%, and the blood, for one result, and they'll give a blood test result of 10 nanograms, that means that it could be 12.5, or it could be
7 point or 10.5 or 14.5. Right?
No, 12. If the blood comes
25%.
25% uncertainty measurement, which means they get one sample. It says 10 nanograms. Yep. That means that 25% of that would be 12.5. Right. So they would say that if they test that same sample 1,000 times, 997 of them would be somewhere between 7.5 and 12.5. They'd say there's 3 outliers out there, and they base this on this 99.7 confidence level, and they do it on the idea that they have a known error rate. And of course, it increases, that number becomes different as you get lower, right? Or higher, right? You see what I'm saying? Like 25% of 20 is a higher number that you're going to have a variable then. All right. So if you get into like 1, you get 1 point, well, let's say you get 2, right? 2 nanograms, and it's 25% error. What is that? That's 1.75. Is that what? No, what is that?
It's 1.5
1.5,
or 2.5.
1.5. Right, exactly. But it doesn't go. It go from 2 to 1.5 or 2.5, right?
Right.
That's what I'm saying. So it's like it doesn't get you below. Anyways, so but in my mind, the concept, Jeff, of precision, accuracy, and repeatability over and over and over again is the foundation of science. When they put a value on it, the value's got to stand for a level of repetitiveness and predictableness of that number, not of within a fucking range that of 20. You know what I mean, Jeff? That was my whole thing. Like, that has got no legs for some reason in science. Just that, I don't know. You hear, like, if you were to say, you guys didn't report an uncertainty measurement, can you tell me what it is? And they said 27%. You'd be like, that's fucking crazy. 20 of what? That's a lot of a percentage of whatever the fuck it is.
Really
it's a
high.
quarter of it, whatever it is. You know what I mean?
Yep.
But that fact, because like for alcohol, it's plus 0.01. What is that? 1%? 0.01? 1?
No, it's more than that. That's like,
error
that's
rate.
like 10%.
No, error rate of it's plus or minus
0.01. And you blow a 0.08, you're going to jail. So you're talking.
But I'm saying if they draw your blood, it's 0.08.
Yeah.
And the error rate, uncertainty measurement, is 0.01 plus or minus. It means that
it's not a percentage. Are you sure it's not a percentage?
It's 0.01. That you can convert that to a percentage.
0.01 of what? 0.01 over 0.08?
Error rate.
Because if we use 0.08 as the baseline.
So it could be
so if
0.07 or 0.09.
So if we're saying 0.08 is the baseline, then it's like 12.5%. I mean, it's high. It's not good.
Well, it's inexact. It's not. You don't want to say that it's an unreasonable uncertainty, but that's precisely what it is.
Yeah, they're predicting it. The other thing is that came up, and this is our expert's letter, is that the confidence interval concept. You guys know what this confidence interval? They get this one tube of blood. They take one sample from the batch, and this becomes the one sample of the entire population that they're using to predict statistically everything about it. It could be a bad sample from the batch. They should take another fucking sample. They should take another test.
Yep.
Just 'cause it's right there. They're doing it anyways. just to
With
compare.
an error rate that high, it should absolutely be required. I would take more than one.
Do you know why? Because if it was one of the outliers that they couldn't predict where it would be, and it turned out to be that one, then they could argue, well, there's only 1 or 2 chances out of 1,000 that it would be an outlier. You see what I'm saying?
And it's hard to really believe with a 27% error rate, uncertainty measure, whatever it is.
No, it's but
that the false positives have to be higher
It
than
works
than
100% of the time, 27.
than 0.003%. There's going to be false positives in there, and if they're only doing one test,
no, there's no false positives in there.
Oh, bullshit!
There's none.
Bullshit.
That's what I said originally. There's none. In fact, they have all the statistical data, and when they do run it,
How do they know?
They run it through their super
Yeah,
formula.
Whatever.
That they made up.
Yeah, okay.
Pi equals.
Yeah, I believe it.
S to the minus
27%. They don't have false positives. Yeah, that's rich.
They never had a false positive in their life.
Wow.
Ever.
That's pretty.
Don't even say
impressive.
that. What they may have had are false negatives.
Oh.
Which is why the
But
spit
don't
test.
worry.
Which
Don't
is why the
worry
spit
about
test
that.
is more accurate than blood, even though blood's
They have
the
a plan in place.
gold
The spit
standard.
test is the new gold standard. Yeah.
It's
more accurate than blood.
No, because they said their blood testing produces false
Negatives.
Right.
Yep. No, I heard that, which we all know is untrue, but okay.
So
just trust and believe in them and just go with it, That's all of that, just disregard all of that common sense that we just, talked about, all of those things.
Like uncertainty budget, uncertainty measurement at 27%, you would think would be significant for some reason. It's so unprecise, right? The reason that it's arguably okay is because they say that there's no per se limit, which we're going to get to because that's the next story. A good teaser, but
it's a great teaser.
What they're really saying is that a lot of this carries over because it makes no sense with this bill for all the things I'm about to say, but maybe it's a good time to take a break.
It's a great time.
We
have to recharge, and you know what? We're gonna get. You guys better tune back in because we're gonna be having
it's gonna get live.
Good conversation.
We're going right into this driving thing, and
big deal. And we're gonna actually, if you want to call in and discuss it after we.
Oh yeah, that'd be awesome.
Take a little rocker, then you can message us on the Facebook.
The old Facebook machine.
And we'll get you set up.
Jeff
which
Frazier
I hear is just for old folks like us.
That's right.
There's a guitar in reach of Jeff.
Facebook.
There's a guitar in the reach of Jeff Frazier. If you pick the right song, he might do a song for you.
None of that was going.
Right?
Can't rule it out.
All right, good stuff. Are we going or what? Was we off?
No, we're not off yet.
All right.
All right.
Take a break.
Let's go.
Who's that guy walking
Tommy's
back?
teasing us.
All right.
You're listening to Planet Green Trees.
We'll be right back.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
Dr. Bud Green here. Welcome to our...
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
And now back to more Planet Green Trees.
All right, we're back.
Well, at
Boom, we're
least
back.
I found my phone.
Boom.
Feeling better.
Phone has been found. Okay, so
Thank God.
So this is really. Well, first of all, there was that stupid bill about the advertising. I want to figure that out. Did we talk about that last week? We didn't. You remember that? We're going to talk about this one, but that was out of Macomb County too. Am I right?
They're trying
Not
to
only
take
was
down
it
the
out of
billboards.
Macomb County, but it's from Rep. Pam Hornberger, who sits in the same seat Pete Lucido sat in.
And I mentioned that also because this Pamela Hornberger here for Chesterfield. No, I'm talking about the billboard advertising.
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't.
the
I don't-
billboards.
That was out of.
Was it
Macomb
out of
County.
Macomb?
Yes.
Yeah, we come up with some silly
Let's
shit.
just say that, and with all that being said, remember this Macomb County was the swing city in the U.S. election 2016
Yep.
or 18, right?
We took it home. We took it home for Trump.
Right. So it is it's a swing city, called that, and it's
Swing County. Yeah.
and it's.
But it
Right.
has progressively gotten more and more red over the years.
I think it's a microcosm of the universe of the United States in a way. It's got a little bit of
Yeah.
everybody.
South is blue, the North is red.
There you go.
All right.
North is red. That's odd.
Yeah.
But
Interesting.
so and speaking of Chesterfield Township and lovely Macomb County, the particular Pamela Hornberger of Chesterfield is a controversial move that contradicts the recommendations. Oh, they even okay. So she wants to specify how much of the intoxicating chemical contained in marijuana can be in someone's blood in order for that person to be deemed a dangerous driver. Now, that statement in and of itself tells us that she has done no researching
No, she
to
hasn't.
determine if there's a need for her to open her mouth.
Yep.
And as they say in this article by the Detroit Free Press, the measure introduced Wednesday is a controversial move that contradicts the recommendation of the state commission. Let me say, it's not just state commission. It was the Michigan State Police Commission who reported under former Governor Snyder that studied the concept of THC blood levels intoxication. And what they said in that was Michigan should not set a driver limit for marijuana, period. This is the Michigan State
Right.
Police. They concluded
That there was no scientific evidence that supported it.
Yes, and in summary, what they said was the amount of THC in the blood is not indicative of whether or not a person is impaired. That value that's reported in a lab report, which we can talk about also, that value, assuming that it is accurate, does not tell you that or have any bearing on whether someone's impaired or not. People, the study says, are different, and different amounts of cannabis in their body affects everyone differently. In other words, a person with 1 nanogram of THC in their blood could be, I guess, with all things considered, impaired, and a person with, 50 nanograms, 100 nanograms, if that's ever a blood test that's been taken, could not be impaired. And that's what the study says. And that's the fact. That's the science. In the DEA reported it to Congress in the same. DEA and the other police organizations the same. So we have, despite that, and let me say this: do you think that? Let me see if there's anything. This has been an area of debate. And I'm reminded of a lot of those debates. None of them really make any sense. There's no place that we can look to where the data or incidences or pockets of the way people are driving would lead us to conclude that there's a problem here that needs to be fixed. Based on the total body of knowledge presently available, the Commission found there's no scientific support threshold of THC bodily content that would be indicative of impaired driving due to the fact that there's a poor correlation between driving impairment and the blood plasma levels of THC at the time of the blood collection. The Impaired Driving Safety Commission wrote in its final report issued 2019.
Yeah.
Recreational marijuana is legal in Michigan, and it's already illegal to drive while intoxicated in the state. We know that.
Who sponsored the bill that created that commission again? Anybody recall?
Governor Snyder.
No.
With this bill you're saying?
The one that created that commission that made that report you're reading from.
It was the Michigan State Police.
No, wasn't it Pete Lucido? Didn't he sponsor a bill?
He did not sponsor the Michigan.
There was a bill that created this
Let me look it up.
Impaired Driving Safety Commission. Word report. I don't think he was part of it. Anyway, so here we go. Recreational marijuana is legal in Michigan. It's already illegal to drive while intoxicated in the state. Why create a per se number? But marijuana intoxication is not defined in the same way as alcohol intoxication. If someone has a blood alcohol concentration of 0.08 or higher, that person is legally considered too drunk to drive, or what is said another way, per se impaired. The bill, House Bill 4727, essentially aims to craft a similar number for marijuana intoxication. The limit would be 5 nanograms per milliliter of blood. A nanogram is 1/billionth of a gram. In a statement, Hornberger said she is working with Macomb County prosecutor
Pete Lucido
on the measure. Hornberger is running.
And Pete Lucido did sponsor the bill that created that commission. This Michigan House Bill 5024 back in 2016. And it created a commission to research and recommend a threshold of THC bodily content that would constitute evidence of impaired driving. So literally, the commission that he created told him, you can't do that. And here we are again.
Maybe it's a different mindset. Now there's a prosecutor.
Yeah, I guess. Maybe
he's now more into like prosecuting.
Little disappointed. A little disappointed.
That seems kind of antagonistic to. It seems kind of conflicted. Number one, think of the amount of wasted money. Like he doesn't need to help respond to the bill. The answer is in the report from the impaired
driving. It's in the report. But what happened that I think it bears mentioning is that there was a little girl that died in Warren.
The bill comes in response to the death last year of a girl in Warren, Lily Lease, was hit fatally injured by a vehicle driven by a family member.
Her mother, or her grandmother, rather.
We have to ensure there are appropriate punishments in place when drivers make the misguided decision to put the lives of others in danger by driving under the influence of THC, Hornberger said. Okay, so the grandmother hit.
The report that I read said that grandma and grandpa
were smoking a joint in the car?
No. That the grandma had consumed marijuana earlier in the day, and they needed to move their cars around in the driveway. Little girl is outside playing in the front yard. They pull out of their driveway, they switch their cars around, and grandma pulls back into the driveway. Little girl darts out in front of the car. So this is what I read in another news report. I don't know all the detail behind the story.
Did they prosecute?
Yes.
They prosecuted the parent?
Yeah, they did. I believe. I'll have to check. Let me check into that.
Well, it's important because if they did...
Right, it's already illegal.
Well, if they did, then they don't need to fucking change the law.
No. But I'll tell you what they never do. They never mention how much this woman tested for.
Or if she had something else in her system.
Exactly. Or if maybe, just maybe, this was a tragic accident.
An accident. Or, I mean, listen, talking about it could be something with the grandmother that has nothing to do with cannabis.
Right. So
There's a South Park episode about that.
Well,
when the old people are driving, they all go down to the place, and Randy's running around like, "Get off the streets! Get off the street!" No.
Well, I guess this grandma's 40, so
I should really watch my preconditioned.
Yeah, but I don't know all the facts, but it sounds to me, and I would hate to think that these people are exploiting this little girl's death to further their agenda. So I hope that's not the case.
Well, somebody must be. I mean, do we think that incident, in and of itself, caused this to be a discussion and got its?
No, I mean
or do you think some family members are making it to do it?
I have no idea. I really don't. What I do know is that we've been down this road before, and the last go-around, I think the one that created the spit test law, we remember that there was a couple, I believe, up north that died in a car accident because of a driver that was on pills. And somehow that translated into a spit test for marijuana, and it's absolutely crazy. And and we'll continue to be there. I mean, at the end of the day, impaired driving is serious, and people, when they're impaired, should not drive. 100%. You're putting yourself at risk. You're putting others at risk. You should not do it. That being said, what is the problem with having the police prove that, A, your driving was dangerous, and B, that it was caused because you were under the impairment of something? This should not be that difficult, and we don't need a per se limit to do it. They already have the law in the books.
If you think for 1 second that the goal and desire of the people that participated in the Impaired Driving Safety Commission report didn't want to come up with a reason to set a per se number, you'd be kidding yourself. I think they're probably disappointed when they actually were forced to look at objectively, if they, assuming they did their, I mean, it was quite remarkable that did anyone think that was going to happen like that? The only way it could is that they couldn't find a reason otherwise. That they looked far and wide to try to figure this out.
Right.
To report
they were
it.
commissioned to set a level.
Per se limits are easy
Yeah.
for law enforcement. They make it so easy. Do you understand? This is why drunk driving cases are so hard. Let me tell you why. When you get charged with drunk driving, 0.08, and there's a breathalyzer. You've been arrested, you're taken down there, you do your PBT, field sobriety, take you down, and then you blow in the machine, and they get 2 results out of that. They bring the ticket in. Okay. The mere fact that, and they're going to, and assuming that they can calibrate the machine, show the machine's been calibrated, which is a big deal. And most of the judges wouldn't care if they couldn't. They'd say, well, you can argue that to the jury. But once that ticket gets admitted into evidence, there are 2 issues you have to overcome. One is that you were impaired by the testimony and the ticket that make it seem like you're impaired. And by virtue of the fact that they have the ticket, there's a presumption, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, there's a presumption the defendant was
impaired,
driving illegally because of the per se level. And you can, and they basically tell you have to disbelieve the whole fucking process. But anyways, that's what that comes to. That means that it takes all, I mean, you know what the tragedy of all this is that whatever that value is, whatever the threshold is, the state police currently don't even attempt to defend whatever value they're publishing.
No, because it's zero tolerance. That's their argument. Oh, it doesn't matter because 1 nanogram is the same as 10.
Correct. But I'm saying that, what happens is if, the breathalyzer scenario, if the breathalyzer operator gets on the stand and says, yes, I checked the machine and here are my logs, and I put the machine on, I took the button, I pushed this, and this is what happened, and this is the results I got, that's it. That's coming into evidence, and the jury will be read an instruction of presumption of guilt, okay? You lose your, presumption of innocence. And what I'm saying is that the numbers that are reported in this data master are believed to be true and they're believed to be honest, and there's protocols and procedures that are used to establish their veracity and their accuracy. The same cannot be said for cannabis in its current method of testing. There's a huge uncertainty measurement that they don't report, and because of it, and because of their inability to reproduce the same number over and over again, the confidence level in whatever value they're reporting is less than their confidence in reporting the presence of. You see what I'm saying, Jim? So I'm telling you right now, if they did this law right now, I've got the lab on record saying that even though we reported 6 nanograms of THC in your client's blood council, if you ask me which I feel professionally more confident in reporting and testifying about, the piece of paper, the lab that says 6, or the testimony I would say of there's a presence of it in the blood, I have the lab on record saying the presence of the blood, even though there's a lab report that says 6 nanograms, meaning this 6 nanograms that they're reporting, which in this bill's, if it passed, would be per se crime. The lab would say, we're not going to get on the stand and defend that number. We reported it, but we're not going to say it couldn't be something else. We're not going to tell you it's going to be repeated over and over. That's the status of the law. I mean, this is asking for something that the lab couldn't even produce right now. Do you know how many problems there would be with that, generally speaking? Like if they took the work that is on the record now of the inability to accurately report this and the lack of confidence they have and their attempts to say that they're not involved with the actual application of these test results, would never fly if we had a per se number. It's that simple.
No, of course it wouldn't. Of course it wouldn't. And it's completely unnecessary. You ask any police officer if they can determine if someone is driving impaired and can figure it out from there. I guarantee you they're going to say yes. The per se limit simply makes it easier once they get to court, because in court they have to prove it. And they have to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's the exact way it should be. And you're going to have, unfortunately, instances where they're able to tie bad driving back to marijuana. And are some of them the actual cause? Is marijuana the actual cause? Yes, I'm sure that there have been instances. But the general rule is no. And that is exactly what the study that was conducted by this commission of all these other different studies and all of this evidence came to show is, again, that just a specific level in your blood is not indicative of impairment. And I assume if we really dug into it, we'd find that people just have different tolerances. And if you have someone that is using cannabis every single day and they have one level in their blood, and then you have an occasional user with the same level, I assume the effects are probably going to be different.
You know what else is remarkable from that report is that they acknowledge that the methods that exist currently to detect impairment are inadequate for purposes of cannabis. In other words, they know that all the standardized field sobriety testings have no...
and this is the Michigan State Police participated in this commission, right?
Yeah. They said what the utilities that they have now they're getting by, but they need to go back to the drawing board. In other words, they're still in this experimental phase when they're having you do the the spit test and the walk like a clown and
hop like a chicken.
ABC's backwards or something.
I had an interesting thing happen today, and I was doing a cross-examination of a police officer who was trained in standardized field sobriety testing. Then he did the A ride, which is the step up.
Yeah.
And then he also got certified.
Is that when you do tango on the roadside? Yeah.
He also does the DRE, don't call it an expert, drug recognition evaluator, and actually does some training himself. He had an exquisite curriculum vitae, and wanted to be qualified as an expert in a DRE, even though there's no DRE tests over here. In fact, one of the theories of the prosecutor was, I know it's not part of this case, but I want him to have like super spidey powers as an A-ride officer. I'm like, well, there was no DRE. Yeah, but he is an A-ride, and he can't turn that off. I'm like, okay, but there's no fucking DRE that's done here. We spent all fucking morning, and then she changed her mind. Anyways, what was fascinating about the other part of this was he was describing, and this is how I look at it, right? They show up and they bring their story and their nonsense and their witchcraft and I'm making it up, and this is what my training experience. In the training experience is this bubble of the International Police Chiefs Association. Like all of the training experiences by the police. If you know how many times I said, okay, and can you cite for me any medical, scientific, or other peer review article that, not the police, that validate what you're saying is true? Is there anywhere you can point me to that test is, if it failed, is indicative of marijuana impairment? Nothing. So one of the questions was about the good old heel to toe. Heel to toe is a test where they have you stand, both your feet, don't sway. Listen to the officer's instructions. They're going to tell you what you got to do, which involves heel to toe walking 9 paces out, pivot around the foot, come back those paces. Keep your hands at your side.
Do the hokey pokey and turn yourself around.
Now, when they tell you to do these things, what they're really testing you for is, well, the theory, anyways, the witchcraft is that they're testing you for a couple of things. They say divided attention. In other words, they want you to listen, be patient, don't start without starting. Listen and understand and comprehend the instructions. And they'll do that to you. It's part of their program. Part of their program is to divide your attention, ask you questions that are irrelevant, that shake you up. And I was looking at the instructor book today. Some of the questions are things like, the instructor, what other questions can you think of that may divide their attention? What time of day is it? What? Like just to kind of like, what do you, so it was interesting about it. Anyway, so they, the heel-to-toe test, like all the tests, all the standardized tests have indicators or things that they're looking for. There may be 6. In fact, at the end of the day of the standard field sobriety testing, they have a formula. Like if you get 1, you got to get to a certain number, like 6, 7 indicators. There may be there's 3 standard tests. There's 6 or 7 components of each. If they get the combination of 2, 1, 2, arrest. See what I'm saying? So it's that kind of stuff. So when they say they got you and you failed the heel to toe, you may have done 1 of 7 things wrong. 1. And you've done 6 things completely as they want you to. And the one that they're saying is like, some subjective. It's just insane the way that they played this stuff out, okay? So in the heel to toe game here, and it was remarkable to me because when I do cross-examination, I usually ask a couple of foundational questions at the beginning, such as, what'd you look at before you testified today? Is that what this is? How many did you write anywhere else that I know of that you had anything from me? And when you looked at this before testifying, was it true? Was it accurate? Was this how you remember things? Or anything that stuck out as being inaccurate? Because now I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions about it. Start changing your mind. You've told me it looked good when you looked at it. And if you say to me, oops, that's an error, I was like, I just asked you that. Where were you? Okay? So we had one of those today. So I say to my guy, I say, heel to toe, in your report here, you have indicated that she's not looking down at her toe. And you keep telling her to do that, and she's not listening to you. But we just watched the video. And you'll agree that at no point in time did you instruct her to ever look at her toes. So when you are writing and failing her, you're saying that you had her perform a test, didn't tell her that she had to do it, and you're failing her. That's an error. I made a mistake. You made a huge mistake. And you made it, he said, and I saw that before, and I talked about it, the prosecutor said. I was like, what? Then you should have corrected this. And you should have brought this to my attention. He goes, we're talking about it now. I go, you just did 3 hours of direct examination with the prosecutor. Never said that. I brought that up. When were you going to admit this? This to me is like the game, right? This is the game because every single thing about whatever he's saying is like that. He doesn't care. But if we catch him, what happens now? They get a pass? Like everything that surrounds that mentality of their quote-unquote expertise, and he's gonna give himself a pass? He's giving himself... Why would we not think he's fucking on marijuana, impaired, when he's doing this because he messed up so bad? Made a mistake, didn't report it. If he's not a liar and has removed himself from the concept of being able to lawfully testify under oath, there's got to be some other excuse, right? He would say, if he was looking at this, he'd probably say, oh, that cop right there.
But they get to play by different rules.
Yeah, it was... Is Frazier still on the phone? Because it was an interesting... I get personally offended by that. Because I think that, he's got to do... the cop's got a duty to disclose. This is all exculpatory evidence. And if you're telling me that you realized you did a test wrong and your report says you did a test right, and then after you did the test, use that as a basis to fail, pick out points that went into your equation of PC to arrest, then why should we trust you on anything else?
Right.
This may be a better argument to a jury. It's interesting that happens all the time because you'd think that we'd get a judge to go along with us, but they don't like to. I don't tell they don't want to. It's hard for them. I don't know why. To look at that young cop that's out there saving in their local community and call him a liar.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, no one wants to believe that. I mean, we do because we see it, but most people don't want to believe that.
Well, here's the
police are lying.
thing. Here's the thing. You know, there's certain. I think that the way the structure of the system goes is that some things are like per se acceptable, and there are never going to be questions of fact about it. Like this thing about the point of weight as a per se value, it doesn't matter if they were driving okay. It doesn't matter because at the time they were driving, they had a breath alcohol level greater than point of weight, and that's enough to convict you. See what I'm saying? So what I'm saying is,
and that's why this law is so dangerous. I see all this chatter online about how this thing is DOA, and I wouldn't be so damn sure.
I mean, the fact that the news came out so strong, called them out on their science. I mean, listen, it's a remarkable time. I mean, I said to police officers, like, you're familiar with this report, right? You realize that whatever blood test is coming out, there's no bearing, you know.
Yep.
In another case I had that didn't get me anywhere, when I was admitting, when I was making the argument that the lab report is irrelevant. Why would they even do a lab report anymore? Seriously, if you think about it, why would you even draw blood? What difference does it make according to this thing, right? And who cares what the error rate is? But it is.
Well, no. I mean, I would play the devil's advocate and say that if a police officer thinks that someone was driving in a dangerous manner, that the level of THC may be something that
it doesn't. I'm telling you, that's what the report says. It doesn't. You don't need to take a report. It's being used as this. But despite the fact that the report says it has no bearing on impairment, it becomes one of the factors for the jury to consider when it doesn't have any bearing on that.
Right.
It shouldn't be part of the equation.
But
there should be a threshold of relevance or impact, not just like causation. There should be some correlation, more than correlation.
Right. They have to prove that there was dangerous driving and that you were acting in a way that would indicate actual impairment.
Okay, well, show the driving.
Yes,
show the driving.
That's it.
Don't bring the blood results in. They don't matter.
But you have to prove that the drug was there. That's the point. Like I'm fine if we shift an enormous burden on the police in doing that, but they're going to have to find a way to do it. And
listen,
the last
there is no way. Don't you remember the campaign against legalization was first, don't legalize it, so said the police, because we already do 5 home visits a day, and we can't handle any more. My response was, why are the sheriffs and police doing home visits?
That should be inspections.
Right. No, where people get called to visits where they want they need some help. They can't call a health institution, social worker,
wellness,
like a wellness check. The police come out; they are public safety, not public health officers.
On marijuana people.
That's the argument. If you legalize marijuana, you're going to have more of it. That was the first.
I see.
That was the first argument. But I'm saying the argument didn't get off the ground because why are the police doing health checks for people that are having mental breakdowns at their home? It's not for them. Yeah. It's for some other thing that we don't have, and only points out how it shouldn't be the police, and we need something else other than the police to be doing that. And that should be a concern of theirs, that there's going to be more of it, whether it's true or not. It doesn't mean anything to me.
It's the type of thing that we would want the police to do if someone is concerned that.
We don't want the police going into a house. Listen, there should be services in order within our community that can address serious mental health or other.
I'm not talking about mental health.
I'm talking about mental health.
I'm just talking about some sorts of wellness checks are a good thing. Like if you have elderly parents that are living alone and you're worried about them and you don't live in town.
But I don't think it's a very good idea to put somebody that has a pre-existing problem, mental or an emotional situation.
If someone is
no, they're not trained for that.
Especially right now, they're all hopped up on something. They've been drinking Red Bull, so they have wings.
They're not trained in the health field.
Right.
They are public safety officers. They carry guns and badges, not
Don't we have
medical
don't we
kits.
have social workers for this sort of thing?
The point is we have whatever we
Do
have.
we want to talk about error rate with those guys?
No, not
This
really.
is the problem we have. It is an underfunded government failure that the more efforts and energy have not gone into this area. Part of it is based upon the war on drugs. If you treat these issues as public safety issues, you're locking people up, and that's where your investment's going. And people are using drugs because of addiction or other mental health issues.
Right.
You're never going to solve the problem.
No.
And you're not going to create any kind of end of this cycle of nonsense. You have to.
They don't want to end it, though.
Well, the war on drugs doesn't work. So the question is, why are the police going to houses where there's mental health issues? Because the war on drugs doesn't work. And we spent all of our money making this a war on people instead of recognizing these are public health issues, and we need to think of. So that was the first thing against the campaign. The second thing, which was really why I brought it up, but the claim was that we the police officers have a very difficult time determining if somebody is impaired in driving. It's very difficult. The tools that we have are limited. There's not a lot of activity, so we can't make out a case whether they're driving intoxicated. Which means they don't have probable cause.
Right.
Why is that a problem? The fact that you can't find something that may not be there? You know what I mean? And it's interesting because it came out today, and I say this because it is a part of the creed, the edict, the Bible to which it's been sworn upon, the oath to which it's been taken, but it is buying into the idea that there's carnage on the roads in Michigan and across the country on a regular basis.
Not
that
true.
The statistics of the cause of the carnage that takes place on the roads is directly linked to controlled substances and alcohol, and it will continue to get worse unless officers that are getting trained in DRE and air ride are doing their job. In fact, this officer told me.
Alcohol is a problem.
Let me tell you something. Tell me you think this is okay. They saw a car that they wanted to pull over for what they perceived as being traffic violations.
Okay.
One of the traffic violations was not stopping fully at a red light where it was described as being slowing down.
We call those a California stop.
But then it turned into and made the turn at traffic speed, which is 25 miles per hour. So I'm thinking to myself, you're driving and just 25 miles per hour, you just make the turn and does that make any sense? Without like screeching tires or that to me would be like you're not impaired, right? You got to negotiate a left-hand turn, a right-hand turn. I don't know. You got to see the street. I'm thinking of the actual. Anyways, so they follow the vehicle and he says, I go, you're going to pull over to give him a ticket. So no, I'm going to pull him over to investigate their driving.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying here?
Yeah, I do.
So the point being that this, and if there ever was a story of creating a group of specific kind of public safety law enforcement officers and giving them a hammer and then saying, look at all these nails out here, go pound on them. It is this group, this category, these A-Ride, DR, they've bought in 110%. You cannot tell them otherwise. They will die telling you how dangerous it is out there. And it is they and they alone that will save this planet. And only through their perseverance of traffic enforcement and their bravery. Is that a word? Braveness. Heroism. Only because of that should we, will the world be a better place.
Because of all these people smoking marijuana and getting behind the wheel. It's bad. It's an epidemic. It's really weird how it wasn't an epidemic before it was legalized, even though the percentage of people that regularly use hasn't really changed.
It's also weird that we can. I have never done it, but I thought you could get alcohol delivered to curbside pickup. You know, that was like one of the.
Is it allowed? I don't know.
Yeah, it is.
I don't know.
I think it is.
I think they still are doing that. If you go to a restaurant, you can get a to-go martini in a freaking plastic glass to go, or something.
Yeah.
What the heck?
In case you want a strawberry daiquiri.
And they want to talk about some THC. Nanograms.
Well, you take it to go. They're not assuming you're driving with it.
No, I mean,
well, what if I get thirsty?
The part that they don't tell you here is
they're supposed to give it to you in a not a cup. I think they give
In a brown bag?
Well,
like a Ziploc.
Yeah,
like here's your wine.
Here's your wine, and then you pour it into a glass.
Oh, okay.
I think.
Okay.
Maybe I don't know. I mean, that's. I actually did a pickup for somebody.
Yeah. Was it in a Ziploc?
It wasn't a glass.
Weird.
Were you unable to get in there if you wanted to take a sip?
It would have been messy. I don't drink, but it would have been messy.
Okay.
It would have been messy. But yeah, so there's I don't know, the police and the fear in the I don't know. It's unfortunate we're still talking about this.
We're not going to stop talking about it because it's not over. And that's the thing that people don't understand is that the part of the story that the news leaves out is that the folks lobbying for this are law enforcement. Because at the end of the day, like you said, Michael, it's really, I wouldn't say it's difficult to prove to a jury if someone was truly impaired and that their driving was impacted in a negative way. They have the tools. What do you need? You need a dash cam, which most of these vehicles are equipped with now.
So what's the policy on dash cams actually?
What about them?
Or do you have to, or body cams rather?
I think most departments are now employing this. I don't know that there's a state law. That's a good question.
I don't think. Maybe
if they have them, they have to have them on. This case that I was interesting because the guy had a body cam but not a dash cam, so he's sitting in his car watching the road that they say my client, and he's eating some fast food, and we only see that because he's like below
no.
you can't see above the steering wheel column in the front of the thing.
Embarrassing for him.
Well, I said I would have liked to have seen the event.
Yeah.
That he's just watching, because he's like eating, so he's like jumps up and he's like, hamburger and wrappers are flying everywhere. McCheeseburger. I couldn't help but think of McCheeseburger. I don't know. Where's Dan? Is he still here?
Yeah, he's here somewhere, I think. But I do think they're going to pass something at some point. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think that the Dems really have our backs on this one. That commission that was created, that was 107-1 in the House, I think I read. So it's overwhelming support.
What I'm saying is that, if the Michigan State Police came back, if this impaired driving commission came back and it was inconclusive, there's not enough data, and then someone did it and said, well, what are the arguments? Why is it so inconclusive? But it was conclusive.
Yeah, it's
not a thing. Don't do it. Who would let this idiot come forward? It's like saying, who can I offend? Let me see an analogy I could really offend. It's like saying, like the Earth is flat.
There are
right. I mean, I understand, but I'm saying, I know it's probably offensive, but it's like saying it's saying something that great majority of. I mean, that the science has proven otherwise. I know that doesn't mean anything today because, you got your expert and I got my expert. But this is their expert. This is their own law enforcement that would have done anything they could to. How did it end up this way? They had nothing to base it on.
Right.
Or they knew there would be attack later on. Do you know what I heard today in court? This is interesting. It wasn't today, but I was asking about why this relationship exists between the law enforcement and the lab. And I was told that, it was actually the prosecutor, cross and direct. And the answer was something like this, like, what, talking to the prosecutor. Well, like we talked the other day, things are slowly changing. Well, yes, it's true that our customers are the law enforcement, police officers, and prosecutors, but there's a lot of changes, and, slowly things are beginning to develop that there's stakeholders in this criminal justice system that include defense attorneys and judges and citizens, but we're not there yet. I mean, this is what's going on, but it's slowly whatevering. And I'm thinking, and I'm, I don't know, it stuck out of my mind so much that, I don't know, one of the arguments, I'm like, this is just so we understand the basis there. This is the lab saying that we're slowly evolving into letting these other folks that are part of the system be stakeholders, and they're inviting us in. What was yesterday? And why do you get a pass on that?
Right.
The system only works if it's all those people involved equally. I don't know. So I'm saying to you that under those circumstances, if they could have figured out a way to tie this thing into a per se number, the lab and all the shit with it, the lab will tell you there's no, based on that report, the lab will say this doesn't have anything to do with impairment.
Yeah, but that doesn't matter. It's not. They don't care. That's not what they're looking for.
Well, they're still doing it.
They're
Here's
looking
the thing.
for to make it really
you wanna
easy, just like it is with alcohol.
You want to hear the story? I don't care what they put up there. I will be able to beat every single one of these cases. It's insane. There's just it's overwhelming the amount of contrary common sense that exists so profoundly. And the methods by which they're going about this is, we're into the 19th or 20th lie about marijuana on the timeline of like significant lies. You know what I mean? And we're in a phase right now where it is just, it's just so obvious, and everything about this protocol and procedures is just a trick. It's like a trick bag that's just trying to score some points on a false theory of danger. It would only happen if we've empowered the police to militarize their enforcement of this. I don't even blame the police really, because it's not them. It's the legislatures that create this, the policymakers that push this, the way that cities have mismanaged themselves year after year after year and not being able to generate funds to even run their local government, and the need to create laws, send out the police to arrest them, and create revenue to the point where the courts have become biased. It all flows together. It really is a broken system that needs a huge fix.
Yep.
The expungement laws, which changed dramatically, and some of the other things that went along with that, such as the changing of the interpretation, the amendment to the language used regarding moral character for persons who had prior convictions or past financial issues. And what I mean by that is you may be eligible for an occupational license because you have convictions from years beyond the cutoff dates, meaning you're eligible, but you have them on your record. That can still be used by these agencies to deny you. Likewise, if you have convictions in the past, you probably may have some bumps and bruises with your financial set, you have bad credit or judgments and whatnot. That too cannot be on its own a basis to deny you. And they specifically speak to this in the same amendments, and it makes sense if you think about it, because if the idea is that Michigan has now evolved to the point where if you make a mistake and you don't get the YTA, Youthful Trainee Act, where it's under advisement and you're of an age of 17 and older, you're an adult, you get charged with a felony. If you're over 21, only till recently up to 25, but if you're over 21, you get a felony. It is for life. You're a felon for life. And then you can get one felony removed, and then you got to, it's changed a little. But the idea is that when people get one felony in the past, then it was two felonies, you're done. There's no way to remove it. This is the way, regardless of how stupid that mistake was. And strategically, prosecutors would charge more than one felony and have you plead to two, just so you could be a felon and you're forever marked. So Michigan made this progressive reform move that they decided that we're going to give people a second chance to get back in the workforce. We're going to cut a time limit of 10 years, essentially, for most of the crimes that after 10 years you become eligible for a lot of crimes that are usually life, felonies that are on your record for life, and limit your ability to work, get jobs, get loans, credit, school, etc., housing. And Michigan takes this step saying that we want these people to not be punished for life for some mistake that they made and give them an opportunity to get back in the workforce. But to do that they're going to be more valuable to our community by having the opportunity to work, by removing these felonies, letting them back in the workforce, it means nothing if the agencies that have these licenses for occupations can still deny you for those past deeds, even though you're eligible. So what the language says, and it makes sense, is that if I read it like, if we're going to do all this reform, let these people come out of the felony world and into the light and become tax-paying citizens and participate in the community and not rely on assistance, so to speak, well, we have to let them get good jobs, nurses, whatever. Jim, what other licenses are we talking about?
It's all types
Teachers,
of licenses, and it's
any
not
of them.
just licenses. It's getting employed. A lot of these.
Well, they can't control the private sector.
Oh, you most certainly can. You 100% can. Number one, these expungement bills allow for those records to be expunged. There are government agencies that can still access them, but most of these.
Yeah, but here's the thing: some hiring agencies will ask the question, "Have you ever been convicted of a crime?" And then a higher level of security, who is that, Jeff?
Mr. Hashbash.
Oh wow, that's awesome, Adam. Excellent. I can't answer. Adam, how are you, brother? Thanks for joining us. What's been going on?
Not much, man. Not much. I was listening to you guys, and you were talking about trying to figure out what it was like a minute ago, the big lie. And what it's like is it's like saying Santa Claus isn't real. It's like telling people that the Easter Bunny is real. But we all know Santa Claus isn't real. And that's what these people do. They tell the lie. It's all about testing the lie. The judges know the lies are being told, but they don't want to expose the lies because that would show that they've been following this for years and have been accepting it. Now, when you guys point out that there's a lie and you catch them in the lie, well, then everybody's got to own up to it. And for that, your client gets to walk and they get a pass for telling the lie. And, this whole immunity thing, I have no problem with immunity when it's deserved, but you should be able to lose your immunity. I mean, I lose my rights when I tell a lie, don't I? Why don't they? So that's what got me to call in was.
Well, those are some, that to me, this concept of qualified immunity for law enforcement, to me is the reason why we are in the state of affairs that we are. If there's no accountability, now there may be accountability that if they do something wrong, they may be charged with a crime if they violate the law, although that rarely happens.
But there's no record. Listen, these guys go from department to department with no record. You as a lawyer may not get your ticket punched, but eventually law firms aren't going to hire you if you keep bouncing from law firm to law firm.
Sure, absolutely.
Which is why it's important to file a complaint against a bar card holder if you have one, because not enough people do that, and people don't know the good lawyers from the bad lawyers. So, not to preach, but that's one of my.
That's why I say, Adam, that the profession of lawyering has oversight, and we're a self-reporting group, and if everyone's following the rules, then you know what I mean, or you actually get in trouble if you didn't report something that you knew to be unethical.
Very much so. Very much so. And one of the things I do is, we're all friends here. There's a lot of lawyers in the weed game that are personal friends of mine. And my actual lawyer knows this. I refuse to hire my friends that are lawyers because if they make a mistake, I only have one recourse. And that recourse is to punch their ticket. And I can't see taking away the livelihood of a friend of mine. And unfortunately, there is no repercussions for law enforcement.
True.
And I ask every law enforcement officer I meet, how many fellow officers' names have you written on a complaint form and listed them as the perpetrator or violator of a law or a rule? Because your department requires that, and nobody does. Now, times are a-changing. We see that, and things are going to change drastically in the near future.
Are they? First of all,
yeah, and I'm going to tell you why.
Okay.
The same reason they're releasing video immediately, because now that's the thing to do. We now are going to departments are going to start washing their hands of bad officers because it's the thing to do, not because, and they're going to do it with an apology to the officer. You know, the chief's going to call the officer in and he's going to say, I really hate to do this, but you know that the community won't allow me not to. And it's because of the pressure that society and the media is putting on these departments that they're going to rid themselves of the bad apples. The problem is, when you look at the bushel of apples, there are not only bad apples in the bushel, but there are bruised apples in the bushel, and there are soon to be bad apples in the bushel. So we need to realize that there are no pure and there are no clean hands in this, because every department has one and every department has protected one. And, you know, I believe that the cause célèbre right now is hanging your fellow officer out to dry. I really do.
Well,
and for good reason. I mean, it's not going to happen for bogus stuff. It's going to happen for good reason.
You know, it would appear that there's momentum. It would appear that the discussion and dialogue has changed, and but the dialogue and the change in a few police officers getting charged or convicted after the last year of protest over the multiple shootings that were caught on film of black men and just utter insanity of law enforcement. With all that being said, if all that happens is more people get charged with crimes and nothing changes in regards to governmental or qualified immunity for police officers, I'm going to call it a failure, and I'm not optimistic about that. Let me say why. Because if you're really going to have change, it's got to come from the policy and decision makers from within the department. It can't be forced upon them. You're not going to do it that way. But if the law changes, that they're somehow subject to lawsuits more regularly, then they will, with more ease, then they will make certain to hire better players. They will make certain to train these officers more frequently. They will create circumstances that are not on police officer fatigue or burnout or professional whatever that makes them more susceptible to fall out of their training and procedure. Like that, the woman that pulled the taser instead of the pistol or whatever, like that should never, ever happen. We all agree about that. If you were going to try to make an excuse for that woman, that police officer, it would be, there is none. But it should never happen. Either she should never have been hired because she was not capable of discerning the two, or she's on some cycle, something's wrong at the time, which is only beholden to everyone else within the department. They should be able to spot those things. I can't, unless she did it intentionally, you know what I mean? Which whatever. But the point of all that is that it should never happen. You should never get a person that is incapable of knowing the difference of those two devices and would not be able to pull the right one under those circumstances. There should be a better threshold. We shouldn't be hiring people because we need somebody. There's not enough people to go around. It should be a job desired. It shouldn't be a leftover.
Who wants to be a cop?
Well, it would be a reason is because they're policing in ways that bring about these kind of incidences. They're going into neighborhoods as enemy combatants and ripping.
Well, they're occupying forces.
They're occupying forces.
And listen, the biggest thing going on, the scream to defund the police got a little. Hold on, it got a little traction, and unfortunately, what it didn't turn into was we need to retrain the police. They're training, and I wish lawyers would harp on this more. They're training, and many communities have a community police academy, and I encourage anybody, if you have the opportunity to go through one, to go through one. I went through one in the city of Detroit, and they teach you what the police officers are trained. And if you can look at the training that they're given, you will see that they are taught, and this is modern. This didn't happen 40 years ago. This is today. They are taught how to get somebody to resist. Police officers are taught that when the perpetrator tenses up, you can treat that as resisting. Well, I don't know how many of you have been bent over with your arms put behind your back. You're bound to tense up. That doesn't mean you're resisting, but that enables them to escalate the situation. And they have been taught escalation. Now the concept is we need to teach them de-escalation. But you can't take a bunch of jackbooted thugs and convince them that they are no longer jackbooted thugs. It doesn't work that way. Now, I will say, coming out of the city of Detroit and being from in the metro area, we have a little different outlook thanks to a couple of officers by the name of Budson and Nevers.
Oh, yeah.
They changed policing in the city of Detroit. They may have killed a man, but they changed policing in the city of Detroit. And ever since then, the Detroit Police Department has been a different police force. And I think that's what we're going to see around the country, that every time one of these situations raises its ugly head, that these police departments are, it's like wildfire is going to sweep through them, and they're going to get retrained, and their world will change. Unfortunately, policing as an industry needs to change. And one community at a time is just not fast enough for society, because it's just going to keep happening. And there's only one way to win this, and that's to fight back, both in the courts and with the media, because this exposure seems to be doing something.
I mean, listen, there's a lot more attention brought to it. I think I think that when the conversation was taking place more seriously, the ideas that came out were discussed in the following ways. One was defunding the police. And I think that even those that were advocating that realized how this was a non-starter, just that terminology, you know what I mean?
Right.
Defunding the police.
Bad terminology.
And I think some of the people and some of the, the political people that were talking about this suggested getting other names. It doesn't sell well because some constituents are police officers that have a lot of political influence in elections. And so it's got to be another name for it. And I also think that culturally speaking, it is its own, they're on their own island, the community of police officers in a lot of ways. And they do not want to be told how to do it, what to do it, unless you are a police officer yourself. However, issues of liability have nothing to do with that. You know what I mean? There was a time when there wasn't qualified immunity, right? And there was qualified immunity. So, and it's given them, now, the downside of the qualified immunity, the argument would be that you have all these frivolous lawsuits that people are complaining about the police all the time, right? But, where there's smoke, there's fire. It's kind of like the opposite. Like, oh, we keep getting calls over to this house. There must be something wrong over there. Or word on the street, we keep coming with this guy over here. There's got to be some smoke over that fire. I mean, it goes both ways. You know what I mean? And we got to decide, which is it going to be? Whose word is going to have more value? You know what I mean? Is it going to be the citizen that complains against a police officer? Is that going to have any validity? You ever see these videos where someone goes to the police station to try to complain about a police officer and they get arrested for resisting? You know what I'm saying? Adam, you ever watch those?
I watch those all the time. I see these auditor videos. I love watching the auditor videos where they go stand out in front of a police department and they start videotaping, and the cops come out because they're all in a tizzy about the fact that these people are, and they use terms like, well, you have to understand in today's society with what's going on in today's society. And all I keep thinking is, yeah, in today's society, there's people out there that want to hurt you because of your behavior. But this guy with the video camera recording the situation is probably not one of them, because most criminals are not out recording what they're doing.
Yeah.
But these guys want to come out and play, Billy Badass because they've got a badge and a gun. And these videos are great. I encourage everyone to sit in front of a YouTube for a while and watch these auditor videos. And many times they do lead to the individual wanting to walk into the police department and file an actual complaint which is then leads to another half hour, 45-minute long video trying to get the form to file, trying to file a complaint in departments where only a particular detective takes the complaint. And of course, he's not in today, and he'll be in, a week from now. It's amazing how hard they make it to file a report against a police officer. But if you want to pick up the phone and call that your neighbor's doing something stupid, they'll be happy to run over and check that out. But they won't police their own, which I find very interesting. But yeah, I watch a lot of those videos. I've learned a lot that, and the best thing I learned from those videos is that these people don't answer any questions. They never give the police their ID. Unless the police officer can articulate a crime or suspicion of a crime, they don't give that officer dick. And I like to talk, man. The worst thing to do is put me in front of a police officer, because I'll talk that guy's ear off. I just have learned to not mention anything pertaining to me or what's in front of the officer. But, it's fascinating how law enforcement knows the law, and they literally will allow it to be used against them on camera. And it doesn't surprise me.
Only because it's on camera.
Right.
Because a lot of times someone may make a claim. I mean, like their whole comment about resisting, that's been a game
for
forever. What are you arresting them for?
I saw a
arrest.
video. Yeah. I saw a video of a 72-year-old woman getting arrested. She had dementia, and there were two police officers, and they ended up dislocating her arm, and then leaving her in the holding tank for 2 hours. And they report, and the mics were hot at the front desk. And they watched the body cam footage, and the police officers were commenting on, popping her shoulder out and stuff. They were making comments to each other about, "Did you hear that pop?" Oh. They didn't know, of course. They were on. They thought they turned off the mics, but the mics were hot.
Insane. Did she live? Is she okay?
She's okay. She's okay. She's just senile, has dementia, and she got lost. She was picking flowers, and she forgot she went to Walmart. She forgot to pay $13.77, for her laundry detergent. Walking down the side of the road, and then picking flowers, and then Walmart had called the police on her. So the police showed up for one of those well checks.
This is what I'm saying. Why the police? That's a scenario.
I don't think they were showing up for a well check.
They showed up for a crime that was committed.
Yeah.
It's called retail fraud.
They should have identified that she was an elderly lady and never have done anything that. She's senile.
The reason that you were able to see that video is that's part of the case that's being brought against the police on that. I believe that's why I saw that actually, and I think that's now a court case, which is why that's become public. But I think that now with the release of body cam footage as becoming a normalized thing, I think we're going to see more and more of that. Whereas in the past, the last thing you ever saw was body cam footage, and I think now it's going to be the norm to release that stuff because it is what it is. Either it shows the police officers doing the right thing, or it shows the police officers doing the wrong thing.
That's right.
What was the case? What was the case that last week where it was exposed that there was a call that went out that said everybody turn off their body cams? Did you see that? Jim, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, that was after the. I believe that was after the
taser,
altercation.
the taser incident.
Yeah, I believe
Wow.
after that they instructed everybody to shut their cameras.
That's not right. That prevents the
that-
conspiracy from taking place.
That's awesome. What do you mean that's not right? That just showed that all those officers are dirty cops.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, it's when they leave it running and they start whispering to each other.
Sure. What do they say? Why are they doing? I mean, they got to figure something out there, and they're certainly not going to do it without anyone else's input other than their own, right?
Listen, these guys have been cleaning shit up for a long time. There is no possible way, and I don't know if they teach this in law school, but there's no possible way that 3 or 4 police reports can be worded almost word for word exactly the same. Everybody sees something and writes it down a little differently. And there are cases out there. One of these cases that's been in the news lately, and I don't remember exactly which one, but something like 7 or 8 police reports were almost worded exactly the same, all of which were found to be a lie based on what the body camera showed.
Copy paste.
Right. It's just easier that way.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's fascinating that, when body cameras first came out, I thought, oh man, this will be interesting. And it took forever to get departments to get policies that required their officers to leave them on. Because they were, and don't
Thought
think,
there was some discussion recently in the news about the policies and procedures of the body cams. Wasn't
well,
there?
every department has their own policy, and the reality of it is that not all these things are all working all the time either. So one of the excuses they get to use is that, oh, that camera wasn't working, we weren't able to download that footage, all kinds of shit like that. And I'm sure Michael's heard those excuses in the past. Well, the reality is this. That's mostly bullshit. We all know that. I know a police officer who used to take the videotape out of his car at the end of the night regularly. And he admitted it to me. So that means other officers had to know he was doing it. Once again, nobody ever filed a report. But I asked him, didn't they question where the videotape was? He said, if anybody ever asked, I told him there must not have been one when I got in on the shift. I mean, it's all like a book of lies, and these guys just pick out which lie works in which scenario. And remember, you still have to prove, as much as they have to prove you're guilty, you still have to prove your innocence. I don't care what they say.
And in closing, NWA said it best when they said hashtag FTP.
Oh, exactly. I mean, listen, I'm a fan of the police if they would do their job, but I'm 53 years old. They haven't done their job in my lifetime.
Well, thank you, Adam, for dialing in. And,
I appreciate it.
You got to call in earlier.
Yeah, and we'll get you on earlier.
I was doing something and tapped in late. I will definitely check you guys out next week for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for calling out. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you guys. Have a good one.
Tune in next week, everyone. And
we're calling it a wrap. Thank you for listening.
Wrapping it up.
Tommy, shut it down.
See you next week.
Shut her down.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today, michiganmedicalmarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, Attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture has returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting into farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.